She stood there with her arms crossed, sunglasses low on her nose like she owned the sun itself. My 10-year-old daughter, Emma, was just setting up her little lemonade stand at the edge of our yard. Yellow tablecloth, paper cups, and a bright, hand-drawn sign that read, "Ice cold lemonade -50." I watched from inside, proud and smiling. Then came the screeched out asterisk, "That's unauthorized vending." The woman shrieked, marching across the sidewalk like a storm cloud on legs. She grabbed the sign, crumpled it in one hand, and tossed it on the ground. "This is an HOA neighborhood. You can't sell anything here without approval." Asterisk Emma flinched but stayed seated, confused and scared. "But my dad said it's okay," she said quietly. Asterisk Curran's voice got even sharper. "Who's your dad? What kind of parent lets a child break community rules like this?" Asterisk I was halfway out the door by then, but she wasn't done. She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. This is a legal business activity on community property." Asterisk I froze for a second, staring at her. Was she serious? Asterisk I said, "I'm calling the cops." She yelled again, glaring at Emma like she'd just robbed a bank. "And they're going to remove that table and find your family." Asterisk Emma looked like she was about to cry. I walked up calmly, wiping my hands on a rag from the garage. "Is there a problem here, ma'am?" Asterisk she turned to me, looked me up and down without really seeing me, and went on ranting. "Yeah, there is. Your kid is breaking HOA rules. People need to learn how this neighborhood works. I've already called the police, and trust me, they listen to me. I'm on the board." Asterisk I didn't say a word, just waited. Asterisk she started pacing, fired up. "We have rules for a reason. These stands attract the wrong crowd. Trash, noise, loitering. Next thing I know, you'll be parking boats on the lawn." Asterisk her voice cut off the moment 2 patrol cars. Rolled up lights flashing, tires crunching slowly against the curb. Asterisk she smirked. "There, let's see how you like this." The officers stepped out slowly, hand on holster, but relaxed. Then I walked over to them, reached into my truck, and pulled out something she clearly didn't expect. My sheriff's uniform. I put it on. Real slow, badge, nameplate, hat. Face turned to stone. Asterisk, "Wait, what are you doing?" She stammered, stepping back a little. Asterisk, "I'm showing up for work," I said calmly. "You called the cops on my daughter, so here I am." Asterisk Corinne blinked like she was trying to reset her brain. You're law enforcement?" Asterisk, one of the officers chuckled softly and nodded at me. "Morning, Sheriff. Everything all right here?" Asterisk I turned slightly toward them. "Seems we've got a case of harassment against a minor and possibly a false police report. But let's hear what the caller has to say first." Asterisk Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her confidence was leaking fast. Asterisk, I didn't know she was your daughter," she blurted. "She had to stand out in public space." I thought, Asterisk, you thought you could intimidate a kid because you were a fake authority like a crown. I said, keeping my voice even. "You crumpled her sign, made her cry, and called the police over a lemonade stand on private property." Asterisk, "It's not private. The sidewalk is part of the HOA's jurisdiction." She snapped, trying to recover her edge. "I am on the board." Asterisk, one of the officers looked down at the curb, then at the table. "Stand's not even on the sidewalk. It's well inside the property line." Asterisk, I folded my arms. "Crane, let me explain something. You're not law enforcement. You're not code enforcement. You're not the queen of this street. And that HOA badge you wear around your neck, that doesn't mean you can harass children and lie to dispatch to get your way." Asterisk, she scoffed, but her voice was trembling now. "Oh, please. You think you're above the rules because you wear a badge?" Asterisk, I stepped closer, leaned in just enough. No, I enforce the rules, the real ones, the ones you keep pretending to understand. Asterisk Curran looked toward the officers for backup, but neither of them moved. One of them was even biting the inside of his cheek, trying not to smile. Asterisk, I just wanted to keep the neighborhood clean, she mumbled. Asterisk, by bullying kids. I asked, you picked the wrong stand to knock over, Curran? Asterisk, and then, as if karma had a perfect sense of timing, a teenage boy from 2 houses down came running over, holding his phone. Asterisk, Sheriff, you want to see what she did yesterday? I've got it all on video. Asterisk, Karen's eyes widened. What video? She asked, her voice suddenly sharp again. Asterisk, the teen. Jake held up his phone, playing the clip loud enough for all of us to hear. It showed Karen standing in front of another neighbor's house, yelling at an elderly man who was watering his garden. Asterisk, you can't use that much water. I'll report you. This isn't your yard. It belongs to the community. Asterisk, she then walked right into his yard, turned off his faucet, and stormed off with the hose still running. Asterisk, the officers exchanged a look. I watched her face drain of color. Asterisk, she's been doing this all week, Jake said. We've all got videos. She screamed at my sister for hanging a wind chime, said it was a noise hazard. Asterisk, Karen spun toward him. That was different. That thing kept me up all night. Asterisk, you don't even live on our side of the street. Jake fired back. Asterisk, I took the phone from Jake and played the clip again. Slower this time, letting the officers see her trespass clearly. Looks like we're stacking up more than just today's incident. Asterisk, Curran's voice cracked. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to keep order. Asterisk, you walked onto people's property repeatedly, I said. You threatened them, lied to dispatch, and you physically destroyed my daughter's belongings. Asterisk, the officer stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to stay here while we write this up. This may fall under multiple violations: criminal trespass, destruction of property, misuse of emergency services. Asterisk, Karen gasped. You're arresting me? Asterisk, I looked down at Emma, who had silently walked up beside me. She reached up and held my hand. I squeezed back gently, keeping my eyes on Corinne. Asterisk, actions have consequences, I said. Even for self-appointed queens of the HOA. Asterisk, then, in the calmest voice possible, Emma added, can I still sell my lemonade? Asterisk, one of the officers smiled and nodded. You sure can, kiddo. Just save us a cop, all right? Asterisk, Karen took a step back, shaking her head like she was waking up from a dream she didn't like. But her nightmare was just getting started. Asterisk, because the real twist hadn't even hit her yet. Asterisk, Karen crossed her arms tightly, lips pressed so hard they turned white. You people have no idea who you're dealing with, she hissed. I am the HOA. I make the rules. Asterisk, the second officer raised an eyebrow. That's not how it works, ma'am. HOA boards operate under bylaws, not personal grudges. Asterisk, she ignored him and turned back to me, her voice full of venom. You think just because you wear a badge, you can embarrass me in front of everyone? I'll have your badge. I'll file a complaint with the mayor, the county, everyone. Asterisk, I smiled. Calmly, Corinne. I am the county. Asterisk, her mouth opened, then froze. I let that sink in. Asterisk, I'm not just the local sheriff, I continued. I sit on the county ethics review board. So if you want to go down that road, we can. But you should probably know this street, this neighborhood, the land it was built on. Asterisk, I reached into my truck, pulled out a folder, and held it up. I own it. Karen's jaw literally dropped. Before it became a subdivision, this whole area was my grandfather's ranch. When it got developed, we retained certain Deed rights, including the strip where my daughter set up her stand. The HOA has zero jurisdiction over it. I opened the folder and handed the officer a copy of the original land deed. Every year, Corinne, you march around this place like a tyrant with a clipboard. You bully kids, harass veterans, threaten moms over lawn chairs. And now you've messed with the wrong family. Asterisk, she started to tremble slightly. I didn't know, ... false asterisk. I stepped in closer, not angry, just steady. That's the problem. You never ask. You assume. You attack. And now you're going to face the consequences. Asterisk just. Then a few more neighbors started gathering. Mr. Reynolds, the man she'd screamed at for watering his garden. The teenager's mom. Even the HOA treasurer. Linda, a quiet woman who clearly had enough ... asterisk. Linda cleared her throat. I'd like to go on the record and say Corinne's behavior does not represent the board. In fact, we've received over 15 complaints about her this month alone. Asterisk, Corinne spun around. You can't just turn on me. Asterisk, Linda pulled out a stack of papers. Actually, ... we can. Asterisk, it was a petition. Every neighbor who'd suffered Corinne's wrath had signed it. Asterisk. And then Linda looked straight at her and said what the whole street had been waiting to hear for years. You're officially removed from the HOA board effective immediately. Corinne's body went rigid like someone had just unplugged her from power. Her eyes flicked between the stack of papers in Linda's hand and the growing crowd of neighbors, now whispering, nodding, even filming. Asterisk, you can't remove me, she sputtered. This is a setup. You're all just mad because I enforce the rules. Asterisk, no, Corinne, Linda said flatly. We're mad because you made up rules. You forged notices. You screamed at children. You acted like you own the neighborhood when you barely even own your own yard. Asterisk, Karen let out a short, bitter laugh. I'll sue every one of you. This is harassment. Defamation. I'll have your jobs, all of you. Asterisk, that's when I stepped forward again. Corinne, I suggest you stop talking. You've already admitted on camera to harassing my daughter, trespassing, destroying property, and filing a false report. Asterisk, I nodded to the officers. You've got everything you need. Asterisk, more than enough, one of them said, flipping the page of a notepad. We'll forward the complaint to the DA. Could be looking at community service, fines, possibly a misdemeanor. Asterisk, Karen's face contorted. This is insane. You can't do this to me. I've lived here longer than any of you. Asterisk, Jake grinned from behind his phone camera. And caused more drama than all of us combined. Asterisk, a few people chuckled. Emma squeezed my hand again. Asterisk, Corinne turned to me one last time, voice low, shaking with rage. This isn't over. Asterisk, I raised an eyebrow. For you, it might be. Asterisk, and then, like fate had a sense of humor, a delivery van pulled up at the curb. The driver hopped out and held up a small box. Delivery for Emma Walker. Asterisk, Emma blinked. Me? Asterisk, the guy handed her the box. From sugar and sip supplies. Looks like your lemonade stand just got upgraded. Emma opened it, and inside were custom cups printed with Emma's Justice Lemonade, served cold. The whole street burst into laughter. Karen stared, speechless, frozen in place as the officer gently ushered her to the side. Asterisk. Justice hadn't just been served. It had been poured over ice. Karen didn't move. She stood there like a statue, jaw clenched, fists tight, eyes darting from neighbor to neighbor, realizing no one was on her side anymore. The same people she used to bark orders at were now openly shaking their heads, whispering, some even recording her with their phones. Asterisk, I could see it hitting her in waves. This wasn't just a bad day. This was the day the neighborhood stopped being afraid of her. Asterisk. The officer beside her spoke softly but firmly. We're not arresting you today, ma'am, but you will receive a formal notice of charges. And if you set foot on anyone's private property without permission again, we will arrest you. Asterisk Curran tried to speak, but her voice cracked. You're all going to regret this. I was just trying to maintain order, like I've always done. Asterisk Mr. Reynolds stepped forward, holding a tiny American flag he used to keep in his flower bed. One Karen had once pulled out and thrown away because it clashed with IO colors. Asterisk, he looked her dead in the eye. Order isn't the same as control. This neighborhood finally feels free again. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I looked around. Faces I'd seen for years, some tired, some fed up, but now all of them were smiling. There was a lightness in the air, like a curtain had finally been lifted. Asterisk Emma leaned up toward me. Daddy. Can I give her free lemonade? Asterisk I knelt down. Why would you do that? Asterisk she shrugged. Because maybe if she had some, she'd feel better. Asterisk I looked at my daughter for a moment, heart full. You're a better person than she ever be. Asterisk Emma walked over, lifted a cup, and held it out. It's cold and sweet, and not from the HOA. Asterisk Karen stared at her, and for a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Shame? Regret? Hard to say, Asterisk, but she didn't. Take the cup. She turned and walked away. No more yelling, no more threats. Just silence. For once, Asterisk, as she disappeared around the corner, one of the neighbors whispered. She finally got evicted from her own power trip. Asterisk, the crowd slowly began to disperse. Emma sold her first cup to Jake. Mr. Reynolds tipped her $5. The sugar and sip cups were a hit. But more importantly, the street felt different now. Lighter. Safer. Asterisk, I stood there quietly for a moment, breathing it all in. This wasn't just about lemonade. This was about standing your ground, about protecting what's yours, and about reminding people like Karim, you can scream all you want, but when the sheriff shows up, the shouting stops. The sun was starting to set behind the rooftops, casting a warm golden hue over the neighborhood one that, for the first time in a long while, actually felt like home. Emma's lemonade stand had turned into a full-blown community hangout. Neighbors who barely spoke to each other were laughing, sipping lemonade, sharing stories about Curran's past outbursts like war veterans swapping tailies. Asterisk, I stood off to the side, arms folded, just watching. It felt good. Not because Curran had been humiliated, but because justice had happened without anyone raising their voice. The truth had been louder than her yelling ever was. Asterisk Linda came up beside me, sipping a cup herself. You know, we've talked for years about removing her from the board, but no one had the guts to push it. Asterisk, I gave her a small smile. Sometimes all it takes is one lemonade stand. Asterisk, she laughed, and a sheriff in full uniform. Asterisk, just. Then Emma came running up. Daddy, I made $63. Asterisk, 63. I raised my eyebrows. That's more than I made on my first shift. Asterisk, she giggled. I think I'm gonna buy better signs, maybe even a tip jar. Asterisk, Jake shouted from the side. Don't forget your security system. Asterisk, everyone laughed. Even I had to smile. Then I noticed a familiar black sedan slowly crawling down the block. Curran, asterisk, she wasn't yelling this time. Just driving by, windows rolled up, eyes fixed straight ahead. No clipboard. No sunglasses, just her. Smaller now, quieter. Asterisk. Think. Should come back? Linda asked. Asterisk, I shook my head. Not like before. That mask of power she wore, it's gone. And people saw behind it. She needed control to feel important, Linda said. Yeah, I replied. But real respect? That's earned, not enforced with fake notices and threats. Asterisk Emma tugged at my sleeve. Can I do this again tomorrow? Asterisk I looked around at the people, the smiles, the peace. Absolutely, but tomorrow we're adding cookies. She squealed and ran back to her table. As night fell, porch lights flicked on across the street. Families lingered outside longer than usual. No one was rushing in. No one felt like hiding anymore, asterisk, because when fear leaves a neighborhood, freedom moves in, asterisk, and as I looked down at my daughter standing tall behind that stand, proudly handing out lemonade, I realized something. Today wasn't just about putting Karen in her place. It was about showing my daughter that even the smallest stand, backed by truth, can shake the biggest bully, asterisk, and that sometimes justice tastes a lot like lemons and sugar. Cold, simple, and unforgettable, asterisk. The next morning came with the kind of silence that made you pause. No passive-aggressive flyers taped to doors. No frantic HOA texts. No unauthorized decoration. Warning slapped onto garden gnomes. Asterisk, just birds, sunshine, and the sweet, unmistakable scent of freshly squeezed lemonade. Asterisk Emma was up before me, packing her little crate with her cups, her homemade price list, and now, thanks to her Justice Lemonade fame, tip jar that already had a few bucks in it from early walkers, asterisk, Daddy, can I put up a sign that says, no Karens allowed? Asterisk, I laughed. Let's stick to everyone welcome. Even Karens need a second chance, eventually. Asterisk, she nodded thoughtfully. Okay, but I'm keeping my hose ready just in case. Asterisk, we set up her stand, and it wasn't 5 minutes before Jake came rolling up on his bike, offering to help advertise. Mrs. Patel brought over a tray of cookies. Mr. Reynolds sat on his porch, flag proudly back in his flower bed. Linda, now acting a chair, gave Emma a shiny little certificate, Community Spirit Award, asterisk. People weren't just buying lemonade, they were donating, laughing, talking like neighbors again, asterisk. Then something unexpected happened, asterisk. A woman pulled up slowly in a silver car I didn't recognize. She stepped out cautiously, holding a single piece of paper. Mid-50s, gray streaks in her tied-back hair. No sunglasses. No clipboard. Corinne, every head turned. You could hear the collective breath being held. Asterisk, she walked toward Emma's stand, slow but steady. Her eyes didn't carry the fire they once did. They looked tired. Human. Asterisk, She began, then stopped, looking around at all the faces she used to dominate. I came to return something, asterisk. She handed me the paper. It was her resignation. Not just from the HOA, but from the neighborhood committee, the garden club, all of it. Signed and dated, asterisk. I've been thinking, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe it wasn't everyone else who was the problem. Silence. Then Emma quietly held out a cup toward her. It's still free if you want one. Asterisk. Karen stared at it for a moment, then reached out and took it. Thank you, she said softly. Asterisk. And for the first time since I moved here, she meant it. Asterisk. She turned and left without another word, sipping the lemonade as she walked. Asterisk. I looked at Emma. She just smiled and said, told you lemonade helps. Asterisk. I knelt beside her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, you didn't just change the street, kiddo. You changed her. Because the greatest revenge wasn't Karen's arrest or her public embarrassment. It was this, her walking away in silence, with a cup of humility in her hand, asterisk, and the whole street watching her, not with hate, asterisk, but with hope that maybe, just maybe, even the worst Karens can learn what it means to live in a community, not control it, asterisk. Later that evening, as the last streaks of sunlight melted into the horizon, the neighborhood was buzzing, not with complaints, but with laughter, music, and the soft clinking of lemonade cups. Someone had even set up a little speaker playing country tunes. The street that once tiptoed under Karen's rule had turned into a place people didn't want to leave. Asterisk Emma sat on the curb counting her earnings. But the money wasn't what lit up her face. It was the people gathered around her little stand like it was a town square. Asterisk, I stood leaning against my truck, arms crossed, watching the quiet joy unfold. The day had started with threats and ended in unity. And it all began with a kid who just wanted to sell lemonade. Asterisk Jake came up beside me, holding a cookie in one hand and his phone in the other. Dude, your daughter's stand is viral. Like, really viral? Asterisk, I raised a brow. What do you mean? Asterisk, he turned the phone toward me. There it was, Emma's stand, the confrontation, Curran's meltdown, my uniform reveal, all stitched together in a 3-minute clip. It had over 2.4 million views. Asterisk, people are calling her the lemonade sheriff. Jake grinned. Some liar in Texas just offered to sponsor her next stand. Asterisk, I blinked, almost speechless. Is that real? Asterisk, oh, it's real. Check the comments. It's like half the country wants to buy her a cup. Asterisk, I looked back at Emma. She was helping a little boy pick out a cookie, her ponytail bouncing with every giggle. Just being a kid, not chasing fame. Just doing what felt right. Asterisk, Linda walked over holding a lemonade herself. I heard what's happening online. You proud? Asterisk, I smiled. Proud doesn't even cover it. Asterisk, well, we're renaming next Saturday, she said. We've always had a neighborhood cleanup day, but now we're calling it Emma's Lemonade Day. Asterisk, I turned slowly toward her. You serious? Asterisk, dead serious, she grinned, because this block doesn't just need clean lawns, it needs heart. And your girl's got more of it than any of us combined. Asterisk, I looked up at the sky, the porch lights glowing all around, laughter in every corner. Asterisk, funny how the smallest things like a stand, a cup of lemonade, a kid's kindness can knock down the tallest walls built by fear and pride. Karen had ruled with a clipboard. Emma led with a smile. And in the end, that's what changed everything. Because people don't rally behind power. They rally behind hope. Asterisk. And now, every time someone walks past that lemonade stand, they don't just see a table with cups. Asterisk. They see a battle won, not with fists or fury, but with sweetness, strength, and just the right amount of citrus. A week passed. And the change in the neighborhood was no longer just a feeling. It was visible. Asterisk driveways were clear, not because of HOA threats, but because people started helping each other again. Lawns were mowed, not for fear of a citation, but because neighbors actually offered to lend their tools. The little patch of grass near the corner, once a battleground over unauthorized gatherings, was now home to a community bench built by Mr. Reynolds and Jake, with a hand-painted sign that read, "Freedom tastes like lemonade." Emma's stand had become a daily stop, not just for drinks, but for conversation. People started bringing their own chairs just to sit and talk under the big oak tree. Even those who once avoided eye contact now waved first. Asterisk and Corinne. Asterisk, well, Corinne quietly sold her house 2 days after her resignation. No goodbye party. Number. Angry final outburst. Just a for sale sign that came down faster than anyone expected. Some said she moved out of state. Others said she was just starting over. But no one missed the old HOA newsletters. As for Emma, she had no idea how big she'd become. Local reporters came by. She gave the same answer to every one of them when they asked why she stood up to Corinne. Asterisk, because my dad said this land is ours and we don't let bullies take it. She didn't care about the fame. She just wanted to keep selling lemonade, asterisk on Emma's lemonade day. Every house had a yellow balloon tied to their mailbox. There were free cookies, signs with phrases like small stand, big heart, and a giant handmade banner across the street that read, asterisk, this street stands together. Asterisk at the end of the day as Emma counted her tips and handed out one last cup. She looked up at me and asked, did we really change everything? I sat down beside her and pulled her close. No, I said. You did? Asterisk, she grinned. Do you think she saw the video? Asterisk, I think she saw everything she needed to. Emma took a sip of her lemonade, leaned back against me, and whispered, I hope she finds peace. Asterisk, that's when I realized. The real justice wasn't just Curran leaving. It was the way Emma never let hate settle into her heart. Asterisk, because in a world full of noise, shouting, and control, she had shown everyone something stronger. Kindness backed by truth. A father in a sheriff's uniform, asterisk, and a lemonade stand that stood taller than any clipboard ever could. Asterisk, and as the sun dipped low and the neighborhood buzzed with laughter again, one thing was certain. This street didn't just survive the storm. It found its soul. Asterisk the following Monday. Something strange happened, quiet but powerful. A letter arrived in our mailbox, handwritten, no return address. Emma brought it to me, waving it like it was a treasure map. Asterisk, Daddy, someone sent me a note. Asterisk, I opened it carefully, half expecting it to be fan mail or another news request. But it wasn't. It was from Corinne. Her handwriting was neat. Stiff, like someone who didn't write personal letters often. Greater than, to Emma, you probably don't want to hear from me. And I wouldn't blame you, asterisk, but I watched that video. The one where you gave me a cup of lemonade. I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve your kindness or your courage. I'm ashamed of how I acted, of how I treated everyone. I thought control meant respect. I see now I was wrong. Asterisk, I'm leaving town for good. But I wanted you to know you did something I couldn't. You brought people together. Thank you. Case, you make really good lemonade. Current asterisk, I stared at the letter for a long time. Emma looked up at me, a little confused. Was it mean? Asterisk, no, I said, folding it gently. It was an apology. Asterisk, she blinked. From Corinne? Asterisk, yep, from Corinne. Asterisk, Emma grinned like it was just another win in her day. Well, that's good. Maybe she'd open her own stand someday. Asterisk, and just like that, she ran off to add a new drawing to her stand. Sign one with a tiny cartoon cup next to a sheriff's badge. Asterisk, I watched her, heart full, and slipped the letter into my desk drawer, not because I wanted to remember Kern, but because I wanted to remember this moment. The moment when a neighborhood tyrant finally realized she couldn't beat the truth, no matter how many rules she wrote. And it wasn't a lawsuit or an angry crowd that brought her down. It was a kid with courage, a father who stood up, and a cup of lemonade offered with grace. Asterisk that night. As the neighborhood finally rested under a blanket of stars, I sat alone on the porch, boots off. Coffee in hand, Emma's stand quietly folded up for the day beside me. The wind was soft, the kind that made the flag on Mr. Reynolds' porch flutter just enough to remind you where you are. Asterisk free, proud. Home. Asterisk, the letter from Corinne still lingered in my mind, but not with anger. It was strange how someone so loud for so long could disappear so quietly. No flashing lights, no grand finale, just a note and the truth. Asterisk, Emma came out with her blanket, sleepy-eyed and dragging her stuffed bear. She climbed into my lap without a word and looked up at the stars. Asterisk, Daddy, do you think it's over now? Asterisk, I looked around at the quiet houses, the peaceful street, the bench under the tree with our words still painted proudly across it. And that little lemonade stand that changed everything. Asterisk. No, I said gently. I think it's just beginning. Asterisk, she smiled and rested her head on my chest. Good, 'cause I want to be here forever. And I knew she didn't mean just the house. She meant the feeling, the freedom, the right to be a kid, to be safe, to live without fear of some clipboard tyrant treating her front yard like enemy territory. Asterisk, I kissed the top of her head. Me, too, sweetheart. Asterisk, the porch light flickered off behind us, like the chapter finally closing on something heavy. And in the quiet, I thought of every time I wore that sheriff's uniform, every badge I've pinned on, every moment I've had to stand between someone's fear and someone else's power. Asterisk. But nothing, not a single moment in my career ever felt as right as watching my daughter hand that cup to Corinne, because that was justice. Not handcuffs. Asterisk not. Shouting down asterisk but a child, standing tall with nothing but honesty, kindness, and a stand made of wood and well. She didn't just make lemonade. She made change, and the whole world saw it. So if anyone ever tells you one person can't stand up to power, tell them about the sheriff's daughter and the day a neighborhood learned that real authority doesn't come from titles. It comes from truth.